Hey y'all, hope you guys are doing well. I'm just gonna give you guys some time to come in. Please hit that like button as you guys come in. Hey y'all, please hit that like button as you guys come in. Thank you so much for joining. So sorry, I had to move the times around a few times. Yeah, something came up that I really couldn't move. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. Now, I feel like I haven't really covered the whole Diddy story, and I really wanted to cover it. And I think moving forward, I want to try to cover the story a little bit more. So I'm going to be coming over here to talk to you guys regularly about the whole Diddy trial saga. So please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, so that we can really get into it. Now, one of the things that I've noticed recently is that I feel like public perception is shifting a little bit. I think in the past it was very much everyone is anti Diddy and everyone thinks that Diddy is not going to get away with it. But I feel like more recently I've been hearing a lot of different chatter from different people who have the impression that Diddy is going to get away with it. Um, or people who genuinely think that Diddy is not guilty of anything that he's been accused of, except DV. I've seen a lot of people say things like, oh, it's just about DV. There's nothing about Rico. It's just DV. That is it. But I really want to talk about that. And I also want to specifically talk about what allegedly happened at the trial today. Okay. So let's get into it. Please hit that like button as you guys come in. Smash that like button first before we get into it. I'm away. Let me, okay, hit that like button. Have you hit that like button yet? Okay, good. Now let's get into it. So I'm reading from The Guardian. So that's where I'm going to be reading today's story from. What I want to do is there would be points where I would pause because I feel like as we read it, I do want to talk about certain things right there and then. So just bear in mind that, if you're trying to find something where you're just reading an article by yourself without interruption from me, then this is not the video for you. But if you want to hear my commentary, hear me talk about it, then yes, keep watching and let's get into it. So, first of all, just to set the scene, for those of you who may not know, Don Richard actually took the stand, and she was basically talking about certain things that she witnessed, in terms of like some of the things that Didi has done to Cassie, for instance. So, I'm going to start reading from here. She told the court she witnessed Combs physically abuse his former girlfriend, Cassandra, which is Cassie, who testified for 4 days, blah, blah, blah. On Friday, Richard recounted a 2009 incident at Combs' Los Angeles home where she alleged she saw Combs attempt to hit Ventura with the skillet before kicking and beating her. And then she testified that the next day Combs threatened and her and another witness to keep silent about the incident, warning them that where he comes from, people go missing if they say things like that, if they talk. So this sounds like she is alleging that Diddy was out here trying to threaten her. Like, yo, snitches get what? I'm sure you guys know what that is. So it's like people go missing. If you talk, it's not going to be good for you. And I think this really goes into, because think about it, Rico is what they're trying to get Diddy on. It's not about the DV per se, but they're trying to prove criminal enterprise, right? And so if they're trying to prove the existence of that, they want to prove things like other things like bribery, extortion, coercion, all that kind of stuff, right? Because I feel like all of that ties into what it is that they are trying to prove. And so I feel like the fact that they have done understand testifying in regarding to that. Now, I will say, word on the street is it ain't looking good for Dawn because apparently there were things that the defense asked Dawn and there were inconsistencies in her statement, which is very, very concerning. Now, if you know about eyewitness testimony, you know that's pretty standard and stuff for there to be certain gaps, but it really affects credibility, to be completely honest with you. Because think about it from the position of the jurors. They're thinking they are listening to this person and they're seeing it or hearing inconsistencies. So they start to wonder, is this person's testimony reliable? Can I rely on what it is that this person is saying to convict somebody of these offenses, right? Because I think sometimes when you think about it, right, like when it think about it as a juror, imagine the level of it's like a greater level of burden. You don't want to just send anybody to jail for the rest of their lives, right? You want to make sure that you are sure that this person truly is guilty. And I think that's where I'm really, really concerned because I know it's just week two and I know it can still go either way. And prosecution have not called all their witnesses. But I do hope that they have a stronger case than this. Because if, for instance, one of their witnesses, Don, says Combs tried to hit Cassie with a skillet, then later on says he hit her with a skillet, then it's like then you say, oh no, well, um something about he tried to, like, which is it, right? All of this does not look good for her credibility. It's like, how can I trust that what it is you're saying to me is the truth, especially if you're talking about, like, if you cannot accurately remember what happened? And that is my concern, because think about it as if you're one of the jurors, you'd be thinking, am I about to put my decision about whether or not this person goes to jail based on the testimony that I've heard today? Probably not, because I think it's very concerning that there were certain things that there were inconsistencies that were called out. Um, but at the same time, I think it will be really interesting to see what eventually happens with it, because the defense are there to find any holes in your story, poke holes at it, magnify whatever things that or whatever inconsistencies that have come up in your story. That is what the defense are there for. And I guess my biggest concern is when you're proving these things, especially in a criminal cases, you're proving it beyond a reasonable doubt, right? And so it's like that is such a high threshold to meet, because if they have any reasonable doubt, then they're told to give a not guilty decision, right? Reach a non guilty decision. So that's the bit that concerns me, because I'm like, things like inconsistencies, all those things are already even changing the public perception. Now, of course, we know the public are not the ones who decide what happens. But at the same time, is this how the jurors are also thinking about it? That's my concern. Because I've been seeing a lot of people have been saying, oh yeah, it's all consensual. And I do feel like, yes, potentially, who knows whether people are paying people and PR people are doing their jobs in the background to magnify this whole thing. Could be, could be. But I do think that Richard being sort of like being inconsistent, I don't think that's really looking good, to be honest. I don't think that's looking good. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Dawn not knowing or like relaying the same story in three different ways, do you think that that is enough for her testimony to not really be taking um at a great value, or should not be giving such a great impact, or weight rather? Like, what do you think? Let me know, because I think on the one hand, I feel like eyewitness testimony is very, very, well, I won't say very, very unreliable, but its reliability is very subjective, right? Because think about it, right? Like, yes, it's good to have eyewitness testimonies, but sometimes it can be influenced by different things, right? Sometimes people don't remember certain details at the time in which they were originally asked the question, right? Until they get asked the question a few more times later on, is when they then remember certain details, right? That's the concern, or that's the issue with eyewitness testimony. There's issues like not remembering at the time, but when you talk to multiple people about the incident, certain things are triggered in your mind, then you may remember more, and then you may remember more and more. Oh, sorry, I'm just a little bit tired. And then you may remember more and more and more, right? Those are how these things usually go with eyewitness testimony. So sometimes there are certain gaps that people may have at the time of initial questioning. That's why it's not something that you can fully rely on. Even think about it, like, if you were in such a highly stressed environment or you had anxiety, it's possible to actually not be able to remember or recall events accurately, right? Until you're sort of away from when, or the area or the place in which you were in such a high stress situation. That could also be something, right? Also, think about it. There's also something called a weapon focus effect, right? Which is when there is a presence of a weapon that can then draw attention away from other details, right? So it's just, there's just so many things and so many disadvantages of eyewitness testimonies, that yes, it's good for some insight, but there has to be caution in terms of its reliability. Is it truly reliable, right? So it's more, there should it eyewitness testimony should usually be used in collaboration with other things as well. So I think it will be interesting to sort of see how they navigate bringing in other things outside of that. Um but I do think that there were some inconsistencies in Dawn's testimony, which makes me feel like defense pretty much destroyed her on the stand. And I know some people may think that, oh yeah, it's not really a big deal. Yes, there are some inconsistencies, but if you think about the burden that they're trying to prove, it's beyond reasonable doubt. That's what the prosecution's duty is, to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. So if there is reasonable doubt, then the jurors have to say, well, not guilty. And that is the biggest concern. It's not like something where it's like a balance of probability, like, oh, yeah, if there's a balance, if there's a chance that this person did it, then okay, there's a high chance then potentially, right? No, this is a more serious burden, right? So when you think about how serious that burden is, you'd realize that most likely there are going to be people who will not want to throw the book at him unless prosecution really brings their A game moving forward to really prove their case. It is on them to really prove their case and make sure it's airtight. I'm very curious to see what other people will be taking the stand. And because I think that defense has done such a good job as far as what I've heard allegedly in relation to Don Richard's testimony of today. Um, but I feel like prosecution really needs to bring it with the rest of their witnesses because first of all, people are now starting to think like, oh, maybe the whole Cassie and Diddy thing was consensual. We don't want that to happen. I'm sorry, because yes, there may have been certain parts of the relationship that were consensual. However, let's not forget the level of coercion. Let's not forget the level of control that Diddy had on Cassie. And these are some of the things that I think it was interesting that Don did touch on, and also Morgan did touch on as well, right? So if we scroll down a little bit, Kelly Morgan, who was a former longtime friend of Ventura, took the stand. Please hit that like button as you guys come in. First of all, Morgan was Cassie's best friend from 2001 to 2018. That was a very long time. She must have been fed up with the shenanigans, and that's probably why she just removed herself. Um, she basically testified that she saw Combs assault Cassie twice. This is my thing. This man is not even trying to hide it. How do you publicly No, seriously, how do you publicly assault somebody in front of witnesses? That is crazy work. Crazy work. So apparently, there was an instance in Jamaica where Morgan alleges that she saw Combs drag Ventura by her hair and throw her to the ground. Another one was in LA where Morgan said she saw Combs hit Ventura and one of his security guards refused to intervene. That is the thing. These security guards they are trying to get paid. They don't want to lose their jobs. So for some of them, they're just like, yo, I am staying out of it. This ain't none of my business. I am not getting involved in it at all. I feel like that is the vibe that I get with this whole thing, right? Think about it. The security guards are being paid by Diddy. They're probably not trying to lose their job. Is that okay? Is that a good way to act? No. But I also understand. Imagine you're trying to put food on your children's table, and then you're seeing something happening at work, and you're like, yo, if I intervene, I lose my job. Sometimes people are just like, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to do none of that. Let me just mind my business. And I think that is also what happened in this situation, right? So it also says Morgan also recounted a separate incident from 2018 where she was personally attacked by Combs, which Ventura also testified about last week. Apparently, Combs struck her in the head. Do you know how crazy you have to be to strike somebody in the head with a wooden hanger? Like something is wrong with you. And apparently choked her while Cassie was in the bedroom. It's like not only is Cassie having to deal with this, now her friend is having to deal with this as well. And it's just like that is a crazy psychotic person. It's like you're choking your girlfriend's friend. That is crazy work. You're not even scared of getting caught at this point. Because I feel like Didi genuinely feels like he's above the law, or at least has felt like that for such a long time. And the thing with people that feel like they're above the law is they feel like they can do anything, no one can stop them, no one can control them. That is how they roll. To them holding and choking somebody in the neck is not a big deal. They do this all the time. Nobody holds them accountable. This is just the impression I get. Because how would you have that level of audacity and boldness to be out here choking your girlfriend's friend? That is crazy work. And striking her with the hanger. That is just nuts to me. She even had to go to urgent care for a concussion. That is like, imagine how hard you must have hit that person for them to have to go to urgent care for a concussion. That is crazy. And apparently, she's considered filing a lawsuit, but ultimately did not. I wonder why she didn't file the lawsuit eventually. Maybe she didn't have money to file the lawsuit. Because sometimes I think people forget that lawyers cost money. If you're going to sue somebody, you're going to need to cough up. So maybe that's what it was. Please hit that like button as you guys come in. Thank you very much for joining in. I know this was completely unplanned, but yeah, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Turn on all your notifications so you know every single time that I post, because I be doing very impromptu lives. So please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss, or and turn your notifications so you don't miss a thing. So apparently, she was considering filing a lawsuit, but eventually did not. Then she met with Cassie a month later after the incident, and Cassie basically said she will be receiving $30,000 from Combs in exchange for signing a non-disclosure agreement. First of all, I'm just like 30,000 for hitting her head with a wooden hanger and choking her? That is not enough. Not enough. And this makes me feel like at the time, Morgan really was just like, I can't afford to fight this man. That's what I think. Because why would you take $30,000 and sign an NDA when you could potentially get more than that? Like, even as a friend, I would have told you that, girl, you could get a whole lot more than that. Why would you collect $30,000? But I feel like the fact that she did tells me that she just felt like there was no other way, and she was probably like, okay, maybe she felt like she didn't have enough money to file the lawsuit and just thought to close it off there. Now, I am not surprised that Morgan and Cassie's relationship ended after the altercation. Can I ask you guys a question? Would you guys stay friends with somebody who chooses to continue to date the man that was also abusive to you, that choked you, that slammed and struck you with a hanger? Would you continue to be friends with somebody who chooses to continue to date a man that did that to her? Let me know in the chat. Let me know. Let me know. Because the way I think about it, there is no way for me as a person that I will remain friends with somebody who allowed, well, I better be careful about saying allowed, because technically Didi will do whatever Didi wants to do. So there is no allowed there. But I would say after doing that, I would be like, girl, you need to leave him. If he did that to me, I can only imagine what he's doing to you. So I personally would not stay for that. Never. Absolutely agree. Never, ever, ever. Because I'll be thinking, like, yo, if something crazy happened, you would help him cover the body, in my opinion. You would help him. You wouldn't help your friend. This is just the impression I get. Because if you can go back to a man that choked your friend and struck her in the head and gave her a concussion, then I'm just going to be like, okay, I need to leave this relationship alone because I I don't want to get into any more situations on this on about this issue. She said they stopped being friends because her boyfriend assaulted me, and she added later under cross examination, the reason I stopped speaking with her is because she was not supportive of me after that incident. That is horrible. Imagine knowing that your friend went through that and you're still not supportive of her during that incident. Now, one thing I do also want to say is I know people are thinking, like, yes, this paints Cassie in a bad light, blah, blah, blah. But what you need to think about is this: when somebody is controlling another person, they control almost all, if not all, aspects of their life, right? So if they're controlling a lot of things in their life, how do you think that they can even think, let me be out here being supportive of my friend? He's probably stopping her from being able to call you to even check in to make sure you're good. It's probably like, nah, don't call her. So he's already limited contact between you and her to begin with, right? So that's just one thing. But also think about it. If she is dealing with the abuse and continues to deal with the abuse and has been doing so for such a long time, she's probably thinking like, girl, this it's just one time. All he did was anger and you know, like it's not a big deal. That's probably what she's thinking cuz she's used to that behavior. You're not used to that behavior, but she is. And that's why I say it's very important to be so careful. Very, very careful. Because you don't want to stay in a relationship or any situation where you start to become a shell of yourself. And it's very interesting because that's what Morgan was describing. Morgan was talking about how Diddy controlled everything, controlled Cassie's career, controlled her apartment, how she lost her self confidence. She's how Diddy would criticize her appearance and how she behaves. That is crazy work. It's like, dude, you feel like you have the audacity to criticize anyone's looks? Like, what are we talking about, sir? The audacity of it all. The audacity. No, that is crazy. Very. And so I know I know prosecutions are trying to like push the fact that yes, he had a lot of like, drug fueled sex sessions. He ran a criminal enterprise um with the drugs and the freak offs and stuff like that. I think they're also going to like highlight like violence, because one thing I feel like has been very consistent, like a consistent theme through it all, is that violence is a big thing with Diddy. It's like violence is a thing that he does on a regular basis. And I think because of that, people already know that he's going to be violent. So everyone is trying to avoid him getting violent towards them. And I think that is what it is. Because it's like, why else, are certain people that are meant to be speaking out not speaking out? Because people are scared. And even now, even though a lot of people are talking about, yeah, Diddy is going down, Diddy is going down, but some people genuinely believe that Diddy is not going down. Some people generally believe that Diddy is going to be able to like avoid the case and get away with it. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if that is possible. But I feel like prosecution needs a better day than today. Yes, I know Morgan did testify certain things, and yes, it was looking good for the for the prosecution, sorry. But I think that considering how things went with Don Richard, I feel like they need to step it up. They need to step it up. Step it up with the witness. Take it down, take it up a few notches, and then let's see what we see. So I want to encourage everybody. I know a lot of people are talking about Rico and, is there enough for Rico and all that kind of stuff? But I think people forget all these little things that count towards that, right? Because it's like, yeah, you're talking about like Rico and stuff, and I get it. Yes. But then let's talk about the fact that, yes, is he truly running a criminal organization, criminal enterprise, right? What are some of the examples of certain things that he has done that gives the impression that he's running a criminal enterprise? And I feel like these are some of the things that they're trying to show us, right? They haven't really fully been able to do that yet, but I think these are some of the things that they are working on being able to do, right? And so I feel like, yeah, I personally get the whole eyewitness testimony, but I feel like I need the prosecution to bring it. I need them to have another witness. I need them to have ask all the right questions. And I hope that the next witness will be consistent, because that lack of inconsistency is what flopped Don Richards at court today. And I just think that it needs to really be worked on. It needs to be really be worked on. You need to be consistent. If you're saying A, say A throughout. If you're saying B, say B throughout. Just be consistent. Just be consistent. That's it. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I am so tired. I need to head to bed now. So thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, share, hit that subscribe button, and tap that bell button right next to it so you know every single time that I post. I'm going to come live again. Come live. I'm going to go on live again tomorrow. So please hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss it when I do go live tomorrow. Okay, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye.